I never thought I'd inherit just a patch of land. To me, it's more than dirt and gravel, it's every scraped knee, every sunset watched from the porch, every story Earl told me about fighting for this place long before the suburbs crept in like a shadow. 5 acres of stubborn earth, held by my grandfather, passed down to my father, and now to me. Earl, my grandpa, a Vietnam vet and the kind of man who built things with his own 2 hands, always said this land carried our family's soul. I moved in with him 3 years ago, mostly to save some cash while chasing my freelance videography hustle. We had a simple setup, me in the spare room, him in his recliner by the window, coffee brewing in the mornings like clockwork. Earl never needed much company, but he liked having me around. We shared the same quiet stubbornness, the same disdain for the meddling city folk creeping in next door with their plastic lawns and their HOA rules. That morning started like any other. I was loading gear into my truck, thinking about the wedding shoot later. Earl was on the porch, sipping his coffee, eyes fixed on the sunrise. Then I heard the crash, the unmistakable sound of his mug hitting the steps. I looked up. There it was. A 6-foot chain-link fence, stretching across the only gravel road connecting our land to the highway. It wasn't there the night before. And right in the middle, a laminated sign that read, "Public Property." I blinked, certain my tired eyes were tricking me. "Did you put this up?" I called to Earl, but he was already staring at it, jaw tight. "No," he said, voice low. "Never saw it coming." I felt my stomach twist. This fence, it wasn't just metal and wire. It was a blockade against our history, against every memory piled into this ground. How the hell did they get away with this? Earl's eyes didn't waver. City slickers. Those HOA folks. They think they can steamroll us. I swallowed the lump in my throat, anger bubbling beneath the surface. This is our land, Earl. We've had access for decades. No one warned us, no permission. He looked at me then, hands clenched. War it is then. That simple sentence hit harder than any threat. It wasn't a warning, it was a promise. I nodded, fists tight on the truck door. "We're not backing down," I said. Earl gave a rare, grim smile. "Not now. Not ever." And just like that, our quiet mornings ended. This land wasn't just inherited, it was under siege. And we were ready to fight. I wasn't prepared for how quickly they showed up. Just after noon, there she was, Karen Pritchard, like she'd stepped right out of some glossy real estate brochure. Powder blue pantsuit, heels clicking on the gravel road, that practiced smile plastered across her face. Flanked by 2 board members who looked about as thrilled to be there as I was. "You must be Mr. Simmons," she said, voice sweet but with a razor edge. "I see you've noticed the new security fence." I squared my shoulders, holding up the stack of property papers Earl had given me. "This fence wasn't here yesterday. And this," I said, "shows we have legal right-of-way through this land. My family's owned this property since 1972. That road's been here long before your security measures." Karen's smile didn't falter. "Our records indicate otherwise. The HOA now owns that access road. And until you settle the $5,000 fine for multiple aesthetic violations," she paused, letting it sink in, "we won't discuss any access privileges." I blinked. Aesthetic violations? What the hell does a rusty pickup truck have to do with a fence blocking my only way out? She glanced at the 2 men behind her. "Community standards must be maintained. We expect all residents to comply." Earl muttered from behind me, "City folks love rules they write themselves." I felt my hands curl into fists. This isn't right. We're being railroaded by people who don't care about the truth or our history. Karen shrugged, the board voted unanimously. "You'll pay, or you won't get access." I pulled out my phone, fingers shaking. "I'm recording this. Every word. Because this isn't over. That's when Leia called. My cousin, sharp as a tack and a wizard with computers. I told her everything, the fence, the fines, Karen's attitude. Within hours, she was digging into Karen's past. She's a nightmare, Jake, Leia said over video chat, eyes wide. Repeatedly bullied homeowners, worked with developers to push people out. There's a pattern here. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaustion weighing on me. How do we fight something like this? They've got money, lawyers, power. Earl's voice cut in steady as ever. I've got some old friends who owe me a favor or two. Time to call them in. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Bureaucracy and crooked power felt like a cage tightening around us. But something else was stirring, a fire. We're not alone in this, I whispered. And we're not giving up. Because this land wasn't just dirt. It was our family's story, and I was done letting it be erased. I spent the next morning holed up in the county records office with Leia glued to her laptop beside me. She's fast, her fingers flying over the keyboard like she's chasing down a ghost. Look at this, she said, sliding the screen toward me. No record of any official notice about that fence. HOA bylaws say they need a 60-day notice before any property line changes. Nothing filed. I leaned in, disbelief knotting my stomach. So they just put it up without telling anyone? Illegal? Exactly. And check this out, property easement filings are all messed up. Either missing or forged signatures. Her eyes were sharp. They didn't follow a single procedure. I felt my fists clench. That explains why they ignored Grandpa's documents. Leia nodded grimly. But it gets worse. Karen's been running this playbook for years, targeting elderly homeowners who won't fight back. Pressure them with fines, block access, then push them to sell. Why would she do that? I asked. Her ex-husband runs a development company. She helps clear the way for his projects. Makes big money on flipping land after she forces owners out. Leia's voice dropped. This isn't personal. It's business. I stared out the window, the weight of the scheme settling over me like a storm cloud. So it's not just us. No, she said softly. It's a system. Later that day, I met Tom, the old farmer who owns the land just past the county line. He's known Earl since before I was born, steady hands, quiet, but tough as nails. You're fightin' the wrong kind of folks, Tom said, setting his weathered hat on the bench. But I'm with you. Got some old equipment that might help, tractor, tools. Whatever you need. His offer was a lifeline. Thanks, Tom. We're gonna need all the help we can get. That night, sitting back on the porch, I felt hope and anger tangled inside me. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a neighborly squabble. Karen's network was deep and ruthless. How many others have they done this to? I wondered aloud. Too many, Earl said from his chair. But not anymore. We're gonna stop them. I nodded, the fire inside me growing. This land was more than dirt and fences, it was our legacy. And no crooked board or greedy developer was taking it from us. The fight was just beginning. But for the first time in days, I wasn't alone. The letters started arriving almost immediately, thick envelopes stamped with the HOA logo. At first, just reminders about the aesthetic violations. Earl's rusty pickup truck, the overgrown tool shed, supposedly unsightly and against their community standards. But soon the tone changed. Your behavior is becoming a public concern, one letter said. Another warned about volatile conduct and hinted they might take legal action. Earl brushed it off at first. They don't know me, he said. But I could see the worry in his eyes. One morning, I found tire slashes on my truck. 4 of them, neat and precise. No note this time, just silent threats. Who'd do this? I asked, hands trembling as I ran my fingers over the shredded rubber. People desperate to scare us off, Earl said grimly. Then came the break-ins. Neighbors' sheds ransacked, tools missing, windows smashed. My cousin Maggie caught a rock through her front window. They're trying to intimidate us, she said, voice tight but defiant. But they won't silence me. Fear settled like a heavy fog, but so did anger. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was about standing up to corruption no one else dared face. One evening, as we gathered at Earl's porch, a few neighbors I'd never spoken to before showed up. I've been through the same with Karen, said Mrs. Doyle from down the street. They threatened to fine me into bankruptcy. Tom nodded. We've all got stories. Time to put them together. That night, we formed a coalition. No fancy suits, just real people with a stake in this fight. Leah organized a secure group chat. Maggie volunteered to document everything. Davis, a retired accountant, started digging into HOA finances. I found myself stepping into a role I hadn't expected. Jake, you're the heart of this, Earl said one evening, voice steady. You're what's keeping us moving. I hated feeling the weight, but I couldn't back down. Everyone's scared, I told the group during our first meeting. But together, we're stronger. We'll show them we're not alone. The power imbalance was daunting. We were small against their money and connections. But the more neighbors shared their stories, the clearer it became, this wasn't just about me or Earl. It was about all of us. Late at night, I'd lie awake thinking about the risks, the threats. But also about why we fought. Not just for property, but for dignity, for justice. Some nights, doubt crept in. Are we biting off more than we can chew? I whispered to Earl. He shook his head, lighting his pipe. This land's our blood and bones. We don't quit. And neither would I. When we finally got a lawyer, I didn't expect much. A public defender, Anna, with tired eyes but a fierce grip on the law. She showed up with a worn briefcase and a determination that outshined her modest resources. I've read your files, she said during our first meeting. This HOA's overreach is clear. They've broken procedure left and right. I felt a flicker of hope. But they have deep pockets, big attorneys. Anna smiled, sharp and quick. That's why we fight smart. Evidence, witnesses, community support, that's our edge. Leia's work paid off. At hearings, I sat clutching the folder packed with forged documents, recorded calls where Karen's voice slipped revealing her plans, and financial reports Davis uncovered showing missing HOA funds. The courtroom was a cold place. Karen's lawyer strutted in like a shark, ready to devour. Slick, rehearsed, and armed with endless paperwork designed to confuse and delay. Each procedural hurdle felt like a wall. They're trying to wear us down, Anna warned. But we have facts. I'd watch Earl quietly from the back, his weathered hands folded, eyes steady but tired. Some days I wondered if he believed we could win. One afternoon, during a break, I found myself alone with him outside the courthouse. You sure we're doing the right thing? I asked, voice raw. Earl looked up, a faint smile breaking through. I fought wars you never saw, Jake. Sometimes, the battle wears you down. But giving up? That's not in our blood. I swallowed, the weight of generations settling on me. Feels like we're barely holding on. You're stronger than you know. We carry their fight inside us. Your grandmother's, mine, ours. That hit harder than any courtroom challenge. Their sacrifices were the roots beneath my feet. I wasn't just fighting for land, I was fighting for family, for legacy. Inside, the next hearing was intense. Karen's attorney tried to discredit our evidence, calling our witnesses unreliable, painting us as troublemakers. But when Anna called Maggie to the stand, showing the recordings where Karen discussed forcing Earl to sell, the tide shifted. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. I caught Karen's eye, her calm slipping, her confident mask cracking. Afterward, I collapsed into my chair, heart pounding. Exhaustion and adrenaline tangled in my veins. Anna leaned over. We've got a fight. And we're not losing. Community members packed the gallery, their quiet support a steady pulse of strength. I felt their faith wrap around me, an invisible armor. Back on the porch that night, Earl and I sat in silence. I spoke softly, I'm scared, Grandpa. He chuckled low. Scared's natural. But courage? That's what you do anyway. I nodded, eyes fixed on the stars. The road was long, the fight far from over. But with them behind me, and their memories ahead, I'd keep pushing. Because this land, our home, was worth every battle. Leia burst into the room waving her tablet like she'd just uncovered a treasure chest. Jake, you need to see this, emails between Karen and the developers. She's been orchestrating everything. I grabbed the tablet, eyes scanning the messages. Plans to manipulate HOA rules, to block access, to intimidate residents, all laid bare in digital ink. They're playing a long game, I muttered, heart pounding. Not just us. This whole neighborhood's been a target. Leia grinned. That's why we're going public. Social media, local news, you name it. People need to know. We uploaded the emails, videos, and financial reports. Posts spread like wildfire. Comments poured in, neighbors sharing their own horror stories, strangers rallying support. The quiet fear turned into a roar. One afternoon, Maggie called, breathless. Local news wants to cover the story. We've got momentum. I looked around the room filled with faces once hesitant but now lit with hope. The community was waking up. Then came Karen's move, emergency HOA meeting announced with less than 48 hours notice. Agenda? Force Earl's land sale under some community necessity clause buried deep in the bylaws. They're desperate, I told the group. Trying to steamroll us before the truth sinks in. I set to work, organizing proxy votes from neighbors who couldn't attend, gathering signatures to challenge the meeting's legality. Leia created encrypted channels for communication. Maggie coordinated outreach to local officials. Jake, you're becoming the leader we need, Earl said quietly one evening. Keep pushing. The weight pressed down, but I couldn't stop. Every call, every email, every knock on a neighbor's door felt like a brick in a wall we were building together. Karen's tactics grew more aggressive, legal threats, misinformation campaigns, even attempts to discredit us publicly. But at the next community gathering, something shifted. Neighbors spoke openly, sharing their stories without fear. You gave us a voice, Mrs. Doyle said, tears in her eyes. We were scared to stand alone. I nodded, feeling the power of unity wrap around me like armor. Late one night, as I reviewed messages, a sudden alert flashed on my phone, official documents filed to block our property sale temporarily. County officials putting a hold on development permits linked to Karen's ex-husband's company. I exhaled sharply. This fight's getting real. But I also knew the danger was far from over. Karen's desperation was a wildfire, unpredictable and consuming. I stared out the window, mind racing. They'll stop at nothing. Yet, for the first time, I felt ready. The neighborhood was behind me. The truth was our weapon. And the next battle, our final stand, was coming. The day of the emergency HOA meeting, I felt like my heart was a drum pounding in my chest. The community center was packed, neighbors, reporters, even a few strangers who'd caught wind of our fight. The air buzzed with tension, hope, and something fierce that I hadn't expected, unity. Are you ready for this? Earl asked quietly, adjusting his worn jacket. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes held steady. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, swallowing the knot in my throat. Karen took the podium first. Her polished smile didn't reach her eyes. Thank you all for coming. This meeting is about protecting our community's future, she said, clicking through slides showing dilapidated photos of Earl's property. This land threatens property values and safety. We must move forward with the acquisition for the good of all. I clenched my fists. That park she promised? A lie. Luxury condos. We all knew it now. When it was Earl's turn, he rose slowly. I've lived here since before this neighborhood was anything but dirt and dreams, he said, voice steady but weathered. My family built this land with sweat and sacrifice. This isn't just about property. It's about respect, history, and justice. I watched neighbors' faces soften, some nodding. Then it was my moment. My voice trembled as I stepped forward. I have evidence this isn't about community safety. It's about greed and deception. I played the recordings, Karen discussing forcing Earl to sell, emails between her and the developers, financial audits showing missing HOA funds. Gasps echoed. Karen's face tightened. This is fraud. Corruption. Manipulation, I said, eyes locking on hers. And we won't stand for it. One by one, neighbors rose, voices strong and clear. I've been bullied by this HOA for years. They tried to scare me into selling. 2 board members, their faces pale, stood and resigned, whispers following them out the door. Karen's confident mask shattered. When the vote began, I held my breath. The room was electric with anticipation. Voices rang out, no, louder and louder. When the final count was called, the decision was unanimous. We had won. Earl's face broke into a smile I hadn't seen in weeks. I exhaled, feeling years of tension release. But even in victory, I knew this was just the beginning. As we left the room, Karen's gaze met mine, cold and defeated. I whispered, this land belongs to us. And we're not done fighting. The community's heartbeat was with me now. And I was ready. The moment the vote was announced, the room erupted. The forced sale was defeated, no doubt, no hesitation. I felt a wave of relief crash over me, but it was mixed with exhaustion so deep it weighed on my bones. Karen and her loyal board members looked stunned, faces drained of color. Word spread fast. Criminal investigations followed. I heard whispers of charges being filed, lawsuits unraveling, and social disgrace settling over them like a dark cloud. One afternoon, Maggie came over, excitement in her voice. They're finally paying for it. Karen's hearing is next month. This whole operation is falling apart. I nodded, but inside, I knew the toll this fight had taken. Sleepless nights haunted me. My mind replayed every argument, every threat, every moment I thought we might lose everything. The strain wasn't just legal, it was personal. Jake, you look like hell, Earl said quietly one evening, offering me a cup of coffee. You carry more than just papers and evidence. I smiled weakly. It's hard, Grandpa. Sometimes it feels like this fight owns me. He placed a steady hand on my shoulder. But you're owning it back. You're the one who won't let go. Slowly, the neighborhood started to breathe again. We patched up fences, fixed broken windows, and planted gardens where tension had once grown. Old neighbors who'd kept their distance joined in, neighbors who'd stayed silent before now sharing stories and laughter. The HOA changed too, new faces, new rules. A board that finally listened. During a community gathering, Mrs. Doyle pulled me aside, eyes bright. You saved more than land, Jake. You saved us. I felt tears prick my eyes. We saved each other. That night, I sat on the porch, Earl beside me, watching the sunset. I was no longer just the overwhelmed inheritor. I'd become something stronger, a leader, a protector of legacy. "Think we're done?" I asked him, voice soft. Earl chuckled, eyes twinkling. "Fights like this don't end, they just change." I looked over our land, the quiet fields now filled with hope instead of fear. I knew challenges lay ahead, new battles, new threats. But this time, I wasn't alone. "This place means more than dirt and trees," I said aloud. "It's family. It's history. And we're ready for whatever comes next." Earl smiled, rocking gently. "That's all we ever wanted." I breathed deep, feeling the weight lift, replaced by something steadier. Hope, unity, and the strength of a community that refused to be broken. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. After the dust settled, the real work began, picking up the pieces. Earl's shed was gone, burned to ashes in that arson attack, and the scars on the land were a constant reminder of how close we came to losing everything. One morning, Tom showed up with a truckload of lumber and tools. "Let's rebuild," he said, grinning. "Ain't no fire gonna stop this place." Neighbors pitched in, fixing fences, cleaning yards, restoring what the darkness tried to take. We started a community garden where the wild weeds had grown, a small green patch where we could grow food and hope. During one meeting, Leia suggested workshops, practical skills, history lessons about the land, even talks about fighting for rights. "We turn this place into a place of learning," she said. "Not just surviving." I nodded, feeling that fire in my chest again. "You've turned us all around, Mrs. Doyle said one evening. "From frightened to fighters." Sometimes, those who'd once stood with Karen came quietly, offering help. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but it was real. "We're neighbors first," said Mr. Benson, handing me a hammer. "Let's build something better." One night, Earl and I sat on the porch, the quiet hum of the neighborhood around us. "Funny," he said, lighting his pipe. "I thought fighting was all I had left. But maybe it's just the beginning." I smiled, watching the stars. "You think the next generation will get it? The fight, the legacy?" He nodded slowly. "If we teach them right. Show them what standing up means. That this land's more than dirt. It's heart." I felt the weight of his words settle deep. The neighborhood's wounds were healing, but the lessons remained sharp. Our battle forged something stronger, a community that wouldn't be broken so easily. I thought about the sleepless nights, the doubts, the anger. Now, those moments were threads woven into our story, making us who we were. "It's not just about us anymore," I told Earl. "It's about what we leave behind." He smiled, eyes soft. "And that's a fight worth having." As we sat there, the gentle night folding around us, I knew this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. But with the people beside me, with the land beneath us, I finally felt something I hadn't in a while: peace. Sometimes I sit on the porch at dusk and think about everything we went through, the fights, the sleepless nights, the threats. This land bears the scars, and so do I. But those scars tell a story, one of persistence, justice, and community. "Justice ain't just about laws," Earl said one evening, lighting his pipe. "It's about standing up when it's hard. When no one else will." I nodded, feeling the truth settle deep. This fight wasn't just about me or Grandpa. It was about every person who believed in doing what's right, even when the odds were against them. The legacy here isn't just the land itself. It's the strength we found in each other. The neighbors who stepped up, the friends who stood beside us, and the family who came before me, laying the foundation. I think about them often: Grandma Martha's quiet courage, Earl's steady hands, the sacrifices they made so I'd have this place. I'm carrying that torch now, ready to pass it on when my time comes. Sometimes I worry about what's next, new threats, new battles. But I'm not alone anymore. We built more than fences and gardens, we built a community that fights together. Whatever comes, I told Earl, we're ready. He smiled, eyes shining with pride. That's all I ever wanted for you. As night falls, the stars spread across the sky like promises. I look out over the land, our home, and feel a quiet peace. A purpose. A sense that what we fought for was worth every moment. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's that standing up against injustice isn't easy. It's painful, exhausting, and sometimes terrifying. But it's worth it. Because when you fight, you find strength you didn't know you had. You find community in the most unexpected places. And you protect not just land or property, but the soul of a family, a neighborhood, a legacy. So if you're out there, facing your own battles, know this: don't give up. Keep standing. Keep fighting. Because your story matters. And maybe one day, someone will sit on a porch just like this, looking out over the land you protected, feeling peace. That's the hope I hold on to. That's the future we deserve. And I'm proud to have fought for it.